Patrick Star, once the lovable, dim-witted best friend of SpongeBob, known for his hilarious one-liners and surprisingly clever moments. But somewhere along the way, something went horribly wrong. Patrick went from funny to, well, really stupid. So what happened? When did Patrick turn from being SpongeBob's goofy sidekick to a character some fans actually started to dislike? Let's revisit the phases of Patrick's evolution, or should I say de-evolution, and figure out where it all went wrong. Ah yes, Season 1, back when Patrick was the lovable goofball we all adored. Sure, he was dumb, but it was that charming kind of dumb. He was clueless, but it made him funny. Remember when he thought he found the solution to jellyfish stings by rubbing more jellyfish on himself? Classic Patrick. In this phase, he's funny, helpful, and still a good friend. The stupidity was part of the charm, but it was balanced with moments of heart and loyalty. Plus, who could forget? The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma. Genius, right? Phase 2, smart but stupid. In this next phase, Patrick becomes more of the smart but stupid type. You know, when he tries to over-explain simple concepts but ends up sounding ridiculous. Think about his famous line, "Is mayonnaise an instrument?" In these moments, Patrick's stupidity is almost philosophical. It makes no sense, but it's kind of brilliant in its own way. This is when Patrick still had some depth to his character, even if that depth was, well, a little shallow. Patrick in this phase was basically a walking, talking brain teaser that had no answer. Then came the Patrick Smarty Pants phase, where he occasionally tried to act intelligent. Whether he was putting on glasses or spouting big words that he clearly didn't understand, Patrick seemed to believe that he was smarter than everyone else. Of course, it didn't work out, and it only made his moments of stupidity even more pronounced. The fun here was watching him try, and try he did, but ultimately failed at being something he clearly wasn't. Nothing says genius like reading a book upside down and thinking you're onto something. Phase 4, acts like SpongeBob. This phase is when Patrick started acting more like SpongeBob. Whether he was trying to impress his best friend or just didn't know how to be himself, Patrick started mirroring SpongeBob's actions, but with a much stupider twist. If SpongeBob was building something, Patrick was there trying to help, but usually making things worse. If SpongeBob was handling a situation with tact, Patrick was bulldozing through it with zero awareness. This was the beginning of Patrick's descent into becoming a dumb clone of SpongeBob. Monkey see, monkey do, except this monkey doesn't know how to stop the train wreck. Before we dive into the mystery of Patrick's decline, do me a favor. If you're a fan of SpongeBob, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't worry, I'll give you 5 seconds. Now, let's figure out when our starfish went from hilarious to head-scratching. Phase 5, the jerk phase. And then we hit the jerk phase. For reasons that remain unclear, Patrick's character took more of a darker turn. Instead of being SpongeBob's lovable goofball friend, he became kind of a jerk. He was more aggressive, less caring, and sometimes just downright mean. It wasn't the funny, innocent stupidity we were used to. It was a mean-spirited version of Patrick that just didn't sit well with fans. He went from, "Is mayonnaise an instrument?" to more of a, "I'm the villain now, deal with it." God, my Patrick impressions are terrible. This is where we enter Phase 6, acts like SpongeBob, again. Patrick tried to redeem himself by slipping back into his old routine, acting like SpongeBob, but more clueless than ever. Unfortunately, this time it didn't have the same charm. Instead of being a goofy sidekick, Patrick's stupidity started to feel forced. Like the writers were pushing him further down the rabbit hole of nonsense. The funny, lighthearted Patrick we once knew was becoming a shadow of his former self. It's sorta like he copied SpongeBob's homework, but didn't understand any of the answers. Phase 7. Can he get any stupider? Also, I don't know if stupider is a word. I even tried Googling real quick, and I was just very confused. Moving on. This is the phase where you start to ask yourself, can Patrick get any more stupid? Spoiler, yes. Yes, he can. The writers seemed determined to push Patrick's stupidity to new heights. Instead of the clever dumbness of early seasons, Patrick's actions became so ridiculous, it almost felt like a parody of his original character. Fans started to get frustrated because Patrick was no longer funny, he was just annoying. At this point, Patrick's IQ isn't just dropping, it's in a freefall. Okay, let's take a quick breather for some character analysis so far. As we've seen, Patrick started off as an endearing, goofy character who had his dumb moments, but remained lovable. But over time, something has shifted, and his stupidity became more extreme. The funny, subtle humor that once defined him replaced him by over-the-top antics, and fans began to notice the change. So what exactly happened here? One possibility is that the writers began leaning too heavily on Patrick's stupidity as a lazy punchline. In the earlier seasons, Patrick's dumb moments were balanced with occasional wisdom, kindness, or loyalty, and that really gave him some more depth. But as the series went on, those layers disappeared, and his role became increasingly one-dimensional. By focusing on how stupid Patrick could be, the writers stripped away his other qualities, leaving fans frustrated with a character that was once charmingly dumb, but now is just, well, dumb. Another factor could be the shift in the show's tone and writing style. As SpongeBob became more surreal and chaotic in its later seasons, the writers may have felt pressure to amplify the absurdity, leading Patrick to become more ridiculous than before. Instead of being SpongeBob's dim-witted sidekick with the occasional clever moments, Patrick became a character of his former self, losing the balance that made him so lovable. So what we're seeing here isn't just a decline in Patrick's intelligence, but a shift in how the writers approached his character. The charm of Patrick's earlier stupidity came from his innocence and naivety. But as the series progressed, it seemed like the focus became on how far can we push Patrick, and unfortunately, the answer is way too far. Okay, on to Phase 8, the random phase. By Phase 8, Patrick was completely off the rails. His actions were random and disconnected from any logical plot. He was no longer a character with quirks, he was just a random collection of weird behaviors. It felt like the writers didn't know what to do with him anymore, so they turned him into the wild card of the show. But instead of being funny, it was just confusing. Patrick had officially gone from the funny friend to the guy that's just kinda there doing weird stuff. Phase 9, Goo Goo Ga's. Ah, the infamous Goo Goo Ga's episode, where Patrick is literally turned into a baby. At this point, it felt like the show was saying, hey, you think Patrick was dumb before, wait until you see him in diapers. While the concept was funny for a short moment, it further pushed Patrick into the realm of absurdity. The once clever idiot had fully regressed into a baby with even less awareness. Apparently they wanted Patrick to start over from square one, as an actual baby. Phase 10, Smart But Stupid, again. We're back to Patrick's smart but stupid phase, where he thinks he's smarter than everyone else, but in reality he's just as clueless as ever. Except now it feels forced. The charm of his earlier episodes is gone, replaced with nonsensical ramblings that have no real payoff. Fans were left wondering what happened to the Patrick we used to love. His genius moments now feel more like a glitch in the Matrix. This is Spongicus! By the time we hit the Spongicus episode, Patrick's stupidity was in full swing. What could have been a triumphant moment where Patrick steps up to be the hero, ends up being a chaotic mess. Instead of showing any bravery or wit, Patrick fumbles around the gladiator arena, causing more harm than good and proving once again that the clever, goofy Patrick we once knew is long gone. Okay, sorry, I don't know what came over me. Phase 12, the decline continues. Seasons 9 and 10 marked the continued decline of Patrick's character. By now, his stupidity had become the primary focus, and it felt like the writers were using it as a crutch for cheap laughs. Instead of being a lovable goofball, Patrick was now an unbearable dunce who couldn't do anything right. Fans who had once loved him began to turn away, wondering how the character they once adored had fallen so far. Lucky number Phase 13, Ink Lemonade. The infamous Ink Lemonade episode, perhaps one of Patrick's most hated moments in the entire series. In this episode, Patrick's stupidity and jerk behavior reached a peak when he began exploiting Squidward's misery for personal gain. Not only does Patrick's behavior come off as mean-spirited, but it also lacks any of the charm or humor that defined his earlier character. This episode solidified what many fans had feared. Patrick was no longer funny. He was just cruel and nonsensical. So, when exactly did Patrick become stupid? The answer is, it depends. If you're a fan of the earlier seasons, you might pinpoint his decline in the later episodes when his antics became more annoying than funny. Others might argue that it started during the jerk phase, where his mean-spirited behavior overshadowed his lovable goofiness. No matter where you stand, one thing is clear. Patrick's character changed dramatically over the years, and not for the better. But despite it all, we can't help but have a soft spot for Bikini Bottom's favorite starfish. Here's hoping that one day Patrick can return to his former glory and reclaim his title as one of the funniest characters in SpongeBob SquarePants. Until then, we'll just have to keep watching and waiting to see if he can ever bounce back from his downward spiral. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the mystery of Patrick Star's decline. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more SpongeBob theories, and let us know in the comments, when do you think Patrick became stupid?